I'm shooting $4 a year, all of them 160 or better. I shot 4 deer 4 years in a row over 170 inches. I killed 3 4 years in a row over 170 inches. That's the quality of deer I had to hunt for.
What's up, everybody? My name's Justin Allen. This is Walter Allen. Tonight we got James Reed on. He has the Pay Lakes here in Ohio, and you can tell that he's definitely killed a lot of deer. Let's see, you were on Whitetail Cribs before, right?
Yeah.
Yep. How long ago was that?
It's probably about 3 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was probably about that long. So he talked about all of his deer on Whitetail Cribs, but tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about his trapping history and just a little bit more about the man, James. How you doing tonight, James?
Doing good.
So, you started trapping when you were 12.
12 years old.
Got into it.
What got you started at trapping?
My grandfather. He was a great outdoorsman and a trapper, and he got me trapping. He was building muskrat floats, and he gave me and my cousin 2 or 3 traps apiece that year, and I took mine out and set them in some holes and caught ground possums and skinned them and stretched them on a stretcher, 12 years old. And I was just fascinated with trapping. So I worked all summer, bought me 2 dozen 1.5 Victors from the local hardware store. Back then, you could walk in any store around here and all they had was traps. I mean, boxes of traps. Everybody was trapping. Back then, it wasn't like it is today. But the next year, he had showed me how to make a dirt hole set. And it was in 1976. I was 13 years old, and I trapped the whole season. I had 2 dozen traps out. I'd get up at 3:30 in the morning, and I'd take off with a flashlight and be back by school time. And I trapped the whole year, and at the end of the year, I caught 1 fox, and I caught 2 coons and like 17 muskrats and some possums and stuff, but I was just crazy over trapping.
Was there not many animals, or just...
Country was full of animals in 1976. The fur prices had literally exploded. All-time high. The prices at first started coming up probably around 73. But in 1976, the market just exploded. To give you a little idea of what we're talking about, back in the 70s, every kid that I went to school with was employed here at 3 farms here along this river, and they raised produce. There'd be 300 kids here every day working in these fields. Minimum wage was $1 an hour. And some of the top workers that I knew as friends that lived on the farms here, their dad was like caretakers, to the farm. They'd make $700-800 a year.
For the whole year?
For the whole year. So by the time I was in the 7th grade, I was making $5,000 and $6,000 a year trapping foxes, which by my 3rd year, I caught 50 fox going to school. But the thing that was against you back then, it's a whole lot like the deer hunt is today. Everybody trapped. Fur was an all-time high. It was hard to get places to trap. I mean, everything was spoken for.
It was just so saturated.
Unbelievable. I used to catch right here in Reidsville within a mile radius of my house every winter 40 fox.
40.
Within walking distance.
Every year?
Every.
For how many years?
Oh, probably for 8 or 10 years. I'd catch that many every year.
That's a lot.
Right here by my house on this river bottom, it was good for 20 fox a year. And every little point, every little ridge here, 6, 7 fox. But like I said, it's just, the country was just plumb eat up with foxes. I mean, we had foxes everywhere. But in this little town we lived in, there was 15 fox trappers I knew of that run trapping. People trapped. Hard to get permission. But it was just a different time back then. I mean, you could just pretty well drive down the road and see a nice field, get out of your truck, set traps. People weren't like they were today. People didn't care. Nobody turns you down for hunting or trapping, but there was some people that had friends or somebody had pre-spoke for the property, so kind of shut you down. But I hit it. The trapping thing was just absolutely, it was like time perfect for my life, because through my high school years, I was making $6,000 a year. My dad was working at the factory as an overhead crane operator probably for $7,000 or $8,000 a year.
Wow.
I think his wage was like $4 an hour
Wow.
or less than that. When my brother hired in there, and I think 77, he said he made $350 an hour. So gives you a little idea on what kind of fur prices we had in the 70s. You would have to lived in that era to been able to relate to what it was like. You know, at 13 years old, my dad financed me. He gave me $3,000 to buy fur
At 13.
at 13 years old. So
Which is a lot of money back then.
a lot. You figure minimum wage is $1 an hour. So what would that be the same as today? So anyhow, he gave me $3,000 and set me up buying fur at 13 years old. I would literally get up every morning at 3:30 and be going to bed at 11 or 12. And like I said, when I went to school, all I wanted to do was sleep.
I'm sure.
I mean, just wore out.
When you say buying fur, was he buying it from other trappers?
There were so many people buying. I buy it from trappers. It was amazing on how much stuff come in from coon hunters that didn't want to skin stuff, or people trapping muskrats. I'd go to school and kids would bring foxes to school. They'd shoot one or, and I was just picking up stuff like that. But I bought fur for 2 or 3 years, and then when I got out of school, I just wanted to devote all my time just to trap because it just wore me down trying to keep up with buying the fur. But there were so many people trapping in the boom of the fur market that every creek was spoken for. Every ditch had trappers in it. A muskrat was worth $10.
Wow.
So you figure that today, 10 times
Yeah.
minimum wage, it'd be a $100 bill.
Mm-hmm.
A possum, on an average, was bringing $5. I got as high as $7, $8, $10 a piece on possums a couple years. So I'd be at home, 3, 4 people a night would come in with a possum, wanting $5 for the possum, which it's, I'd pay $5, get 8, 7, or 8 out of them on the time. But people, literally, if you're going down the road and you seen a possum, you was getting out of your car with a club
Picking it up.
trying to kill it.
Oh, trying to hunt it down.
Trying to hunt it down. But that fur market took off probably around about 75. It started picking up. In the early 70s, Grandpa said they started skinning them. He said he remember when they started bringing $5, $6 a piece. He said, for years when he started trapping, probably in the mid-60s with the dirt hole, he said they'd just trap them and hang them on the fence. And by the early 70s, they got a little value to them, and he started, he started skinning them out and stuff. But there was literally no trappers here, and nobody had the knowledge on how to trap. One of the first books, I got a lot of books from my grandfather. I inherited them all. But, everybody you knew that got into trapping in the 70s had to write a book. Literally every trapper. And I didn't know of a single trapper in the state of Ohio through the 70s that ever caught 100 fox in a season. It was unheard of. People caught 70, 80 fox. They was like professional, well-known longliner trappers.
Right.
But my grandfather, he would deer hunt every year. And then he'd wait till after deer season, which would be mid-December. And he never set more than 18 traps out. And he'd have to walk everywhere he went. He carried a tomato basket with his stuff in it.
I seen that in one of the pictures.
He carried a tomato basket, and nobody had ever trapped this country. Nobody had the knowledge to trap. He started in the 60s. He retired from the clay mines, and he was a big produce farmer, so he would raise his produce in the summer and trap and deer hunt. He loved to deer hunt, and he got into doing that trapping thing, and I'd say when the market started getting good, people just come to him. My grandfather was a wonderful man. He was a good Christian man. He was never selfish or jealous. He took everything he knew and just freely showed it to everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you would call him up and say, I want to learn how to catch a fox, he'd say, come on.
Well, that's what you've done to me
Yeah.
for 30 years now. Every time I got a question, I come to you, and you've always showed me.
Well, maybe I've inherited some of his good qualities.
Absolutely.
But anyhow, my grandfather was very generous. And his neighbor, which was his first cousin, he got him into trapping. But I remember by the time I was full-time trapping, my grandfather died in 86. It was the best trapping season I ever had. I caught 190 fox in 33 days. And I pulled my traps and quit because I had some other issues I was dealing with at the time. But I caught 75 fox in 7 days, probably 80 coon, and probably 100 possums that year. Now, that was the last year. It was in 86 that fur was worth anything. I caught 22 fox the second night and 20 the first night.
Wow.
That year in 86. Still a lot of trappers out there, but it wasn't as bad as it was through the 70s.
Right.
But, it was an era that people couldn't even imagine the money and the wealth. I mean, my grandfather and his brother-in-law used to take off work, and they worked in the clay mines. This would have been in the 20s, back when you seen people wearing these fur scarves and fur coats a lot. And they would go to Pennsylvania and stay in a tent and deer hunt and trap. He said they'd get off 2 weeks a year, and the only method they knew of to trap foxes was to notch out a tree that was crossing a ravine and wire trap to it.
And trap right in the tree itself.
They would notch that trap out and use a little nail as a governor to tighten that up, set that trap, hoping that fox would cross that tree. They'd stay up there in the tent in zero weather, catch an average of 8 fox a season. 2 weeks trapping, they'd catch 8 fox. That was the only knowledge that anybody had on how to catch a fox. But he said that a fox was worth a week's wages.
Wow.
And
So 8 foxes is 8 weeks.
that'd be 2 months' wages in 2 weeks. So you go up there and trap, and
That's pretty good.
that was pretty awesome. But like I said, when I went to school in the 70s, not many people could catch foxes. Nobody really ever got where they was good at catching them, but everybody trapped muskrats and coons. Every kid I went to school with had a trap line. I mean, everybody trapped. And around this country, everybody lived, out in the country. And I mean,
That's the only way they got money.
trapping was a whole lot like the deer hunting thing is today. Every piece of property is managed for a deer. People's obsessed with the deer. People's just crazy over deer. You can't hunt anywhere anymore.
I don't know anybody's crazy over deer.
Nah, not at all. No.
But the trapping was like that. I mean, everybody trapped. Everybody, people just. It's just like the Hocking River up here. They used to catch 1,000 rats a year from here to Guysville.
Holy moly.
And everybody had their little sections of river, and people respected one another.
Right.
If somebody had it tied up, you stayed out of there. And I never had any trouble running traps with other trappers still and stuff. But the problem was, and really over the years I trapped, I've never lost many animals to thieves.
That's good.
And you would think with the fur prices as high as what they were,
People would steal them.
but I'd be trapping and run on the foxes and traps. I would just knock them in the head and leave them lay, and mink and stuff I'd run onto, other people's. But never had much trouble with people stealing. Now, I had some trouble stealing traps. My grandfather always laughed. He said that's one thing that they gave him a good name, steal traps, because everybody wants to steal.
Yep. Makes sense.
What's the difference in the trap style back then versus what people use today?
Well, about all we had back then. There was no coyotes. There was never a coyote heard of anywhere here. And there was no bobcats. I mean, all the trapping pressure there was not a bobcat or a coyote ever caught in Ohio that I knew of until the early 80s. I knew a guy caught one up in northern part of the state, but all we used was a 1.5 Victor. And every hardware store around here, you could walk in and everybody just had boxes of traps. And you could buy a dozen traps for $13 probably.
Wow. So the same style, just foot trap.
Seen double coil springs, which they wasn't made out of much. I mean, they was pretty cheap, pretty junky. Nothing like the traps we got today.
What'd they cost?
Probably $13 a dozen
Yeah.
back in the 70s. I mean, you could walk, every store had trapping supplies. I mean, it was just incredible. And then the thing that was amazing is every year, like when I was trapping, I'd have 10 or 12 fur buyers call me. Everybody constantly bidding on my fur. And I sold, to local fur buyers, and I bought fur for local fur buyers as a kid. But later on, when I got into catching a lot of stuff, we went to the auctions. We had a big fur auction every year in Glenville. Hundreds of buyers would show up. And we had raised silver foxes for a lot of years, and we had a lot of pens, and I got catching these foxes, bringing them all home alive, putting them in the pen and keeping them until they primed up. And one year I went in, I had over 100 red fox and probably close to 100 gray fox. For 4 years in a row, I walked away with the most price ever paid for a fox pelt at the fur auction.
Wow.
And my fur brought so much more than everybody else's that my trapping friend all my life, which was older than me, he lived in Belpre. It was Freddie Price, and he was the only trapper in Ohio that ever caught over 100 fox during this big fur thing, when everybody was trapping. But he would always get the number. One year he'd go behind me, next year he'd go above me. He'd say, it wouldn't matter where I go, you always get $5 more fox than I did. But I remember walking in there the first year, and I had 100 number one foxes, all of them cherry reds and prime. And if you take them fox, bring them home, put them in a pen, cover them with black plastic, in 2 or 3 weeks, they would all turn cherry red.
Really?
Yeah. Just the darkness. And everybody said, where are you catching these at? North Dakota? They all thought I was going somewhere and catching them.
Wow. You was just taking care of your fur.
Yeah, I had that good of foxes. And we had a fur farm, and we put all of our pelts on Hudson Bay boards, and Dad had ordered the boards, which everybody back in was stretching their fox on wire stretchers, which always made the fur look thin in them.
Yeah.
We learned to put them up on boards, but like I said, when it came to an end in 1986, I got 10 years of making a lot of money trapping. I was graduated from high school. I trapped for 35 days the year before, caught 150. Caught 190 in 33 days, and I had some issues to deal with those 2 years. And I had to pull my traps and quit early in the season. But like I said, it was just...
So when you're catching that many fox, you're skinning them every day?
Yep.
Every night?
Every night.
And then you're back up every morning, running your traps?
Which would be like a whole day thing.
I would get out of bed. I was always full of ambition. My mom said that I was always up in the middle of the night my whole life. I was just driven. I never required a lot of sleep, and I was just always up and gone by the time I can remember. But
so you'd run the trap line before school,
yeah,
and bring all the critters back, and would you skin them before school?
I skinned everything I ever caught all by myself except the year I caught 190 fox. I had 2 local kids, well, not kids, but boys I growed up with as a little younger than me. They skinned for me. And like I said, that first week I probably caught 300 animals in 7 days. And I would get up at 3:30 and they'd still be skinning when I the next evening. But other than that, I skinned everything myself.
So are you catching anything besides fox then?
Yeah, we kept everything.
Kept everything.
Everything was worth a lot of money.
So what's the difference in price back then to what they're worth today?
Well, there's literally no value today at all.
No,
you can't sell them.
Really.
But just think about it. As a kid in the 70s, a lot of people tried to catch foxes. People wasn't that successful. But my grandfather had taught everybody around here how to trap. And he literally, by the time he was in his 80s, before he died, he said, I literally taught everybody to the point there's no place left to trap. I mean, every place he'd had was taken away from him.
Yep.
And it was just trappers everywhere. But he was generous, and he showed everybody. But my grandfather, probably 4 or 5 other ones had trapped before my time, which every farm around here had been trapped. Now, my grandfather started trapping with a dirt hole set in the 60s. These foxes had never seen a dirt hole set.
Explain what a dirt hole set is, because I don't know what it is.
Well, a dirt hole set is a whole lot like a mouse hole in the ground. You dig out a low place, set your trap in it, sift dirt over it, make a little hole, cut it at an angle, put your bait or scent or yarn on it. Fox is out mousing around in the field. He comes up. That was the number one primary set that was used through the 70s, 60s, dirt hole sets. But by the time I started trapping and got catching foxes, I developed my complete 100% system of trapping. There was not a trapper ever known of through the 70s that ever caught 100 fox in a season in Ohio. None of them did. And I at 16 years old, I got a newspaper article, and it's over here on the wall. It said, a youth owns record fox bag in Ohio. And I think I caught 20 fox in one night or something like that, or 20, I can't even remember. But I've caught over 20 several nights. But at 16 years old, I got that newspaper article and kind of got a lot of recognition.
You catching all them in the dirt hole?
No, I'm going to tell you something. The foxes, even the pups, after 10 years of everybody trapping, My grandfather used to say, I used to take a bottle of Hallbecker's 500 and catch 30 fox off from it. By the time I started trapping, anything that you bought commercially was like a repellent. I mean, they literally just was super smart.
Already
Just
saying
knew it.
It was just, they had just developed a sixth sense to it. What really got me as I had my own system of trapping, but I literally got away with the dirt hole sets. And I used to make a set I'd call a post set. And I had a thing made like a cookie cutter, and I'd drive it in the ground. It would pop the sod out, and it was a perfect shape of that trap. And I would just sit that trap down in that. It would fit around that so tight. And I would just pull a little grass out and cover that trap. I'd go back about 6 inches, dig a hole straight down, go out in the field and get a bunch of tall grass and bend it over, and I'd shove it in there. And all I'd do is put a little yarn on that. And I mean, I was just wearing foxes out left and right like that. And just slaughtered them. And then I used to take a little fox turd, scratch a little hole in the ground, put that turd in there, did the same thing with that. And by the time the 80s come, now you're looking at these foxes had been trapped hard for 10 years. And it seemed like even the pups was smart to it. But people, they used to literally, when I trapped in the 70s, there was no four-wheelers. There was no means of anything. Everybody at trap had to walk. So you imagine walking up 4 or 5 big hills every day to run 4 or 5 traps. I mean,
doesn't take long, and a week and you're done.
Well, most trappers never run more than 20 traps a day because they had to walk every day.
Sure.
And everybody was limited. Well, this was what really gave me the edge. At 13 years old, I bought a Honda Trail 90 motorcycle.
Three-wheeler?
No.
Motorcycle.
Little Trail 90 motorcycle. And I'd get on that thing and drive it all over the country, and they would just hate my guts. I mean, them guys would say, here he comes, you know.
Yep.
And I would just run all over the hillsides, and that's what it...
Trapping basket on your back?
No, I had a box built on the back. Carried it all in that box. But that gave me the ability to run more traps, cover a lot of ground.
Sure.
And there was nobody running a motorcycle. Everybody was just driving everywhere they went. So that gave them limitations.
Right.
Wasn't like today, you know, everybody.
So everybody else was running 20 traps in it. So how many were you running?
Well, the most I ever had out at a time was 120 traps. I mean...
At one time.
Yeah.
So what's it like to set 120 traps?
Well, when I started really sacking up the critters, my dad, he would never let me go out of the house. That's one thing he never would do. He would never go along with breaking any game laws or violations. He said, you're not leaving this house till 12 o'clock. But at midnight... Opening day. Midnight. He said at midnight you can start putting traps in the ground. So I would go, he would let me skip 5 days of school every year. Let get to take 5 days off. And I would start at midnight and set traps all night and all next day. And then after, you know, during that time I'd have 50, 60 traps in the ground, which I was making all my sets as I went. But after I did that a while, I learned a lot. And when I started putting out 100 traps, I would go out 2 weeks before, make all my sets, put my traps in the ground and cover them up with a big chunk of something to hide them in the ground. So on opening day, the trap was already staked. The set was already made. All I had to do is cop the jaws. And then it was ready. So the year I caught 190 fox, I had 100 traps in the ground. I built 120 chunks of plywood, a foot by foot.
To cover them all.
And I had all my traps already set, put the plywood over top of them, and had 2 metal stakes, one in each corner. So on the first day, all I had to do was pull the rods and pull the plywood and put the scent on the trap. And that's how I was able to get 120 traps.
That's fast. Moving on.
How'd you remember where they all were?
I don't know. You know, you just, when you're obsessed with something, there was no GPS or marking spot.
No, there's no phone.
But I mean, when you just eat and sleep, I mean, literally, all the way through high school, I never had girlfriends. I never dated. All was on my mind was foxes.
So how far apart would you set these traps?
Well, I mean, I'd have a farm. I'd go down the road a mile or two and have another piece of property. Maybe I'd drive 5 miles. I mean,
You set 2 or 3 sets on each farm, or
well, sometimes 8 or 10.
sometimes 8 or 10?
Depends.
Mostly roadways, or
just anything that you thought was structured funnels. It's about like deer hunting. You know, once you learn,
The game trails where they're on the walk.
you just, I think as an outdoorsman, you just learn to think like the thing that you're after, you become that. I mean, that's like deer hunting. I can just walk in a spot, give me a few minutes, and I can pick the best spot on that piece of property. But it's, you know, it just comes from a lifetime obsession. You know, it's like the trapping thing. I mean, I couldn't even sleep at night thinking about a trap, a fox in a trap. But I'm telling you, for 10 years, every time I'd look out there and see a fox in a trap, my heart would beat clear out of my chest. That's how excited
Yep.
and driven.
Just never got tired of it.
Never got tired of it.
So you would make all your sets ahead of time, so you didn't have to carry all.
Well, not in the beginning, but in the last, you know, every year I trapped, I got a little smarter,
was carrying all those
a
traps.
little more productive. I mean, if even as a kid, you go out and try to put 40 traps in the ground, dig all the holes, dig all the sets, drive all the stakes.
Can't get it done.
You can't get it done. So, like I said, when I started catching the big numbers and started really getting productive, you know, I just got this techniques of getting more stuff in the ground, you know.
So you think there was a higher number of reds or a higher number of grays?
When I started trapping, there was literally no red fox here at all. It was every hillside was just eat up a gray fox. And this is how thick they were. There was 2 or 3 people probably around this area. I know out to Guysville, we had the Ashcrafts,
Yep.
and they would shoot 150 to 200 gray fox a year.
Wow.
Call them in with a call. And there was several people that was killing 150 gray fox a year. The callers would just, you know, they had that Johnny Stewart fox tape,
Yep.
and they would go out.
Like a cassette.
Yep.
Well, you know, I tried calling them foxes, and I'd killed a few. Never put a lot of time into it. But after that era had passed and fur prices, when we all got a little older, you know, the Ashcraft and me become friends, and we talked. And Scott told me, he said, we only hunted 1 week out of the month.
Really?
And I said, well, when was that? And he said, quarter moon. He said, we'd take the whole week and hunt the whole week. All the rest of it sucked. I said, now you tell me when fur ain't worth nothing.
Yeah.
'Cause
For sure.
it was kind of funny. It was probably in the 90s, and I went out one night and made 2 stops and shot 4 gray fox. That was quarter moon phase. And I told him about it. He looked at me and laughed. He said, it's the only time we'd hunt that 1 week of the quarter moon.
Really. When you know, you know.
Yeah. It's just, but like I said, it was an era beyond anything that, I mean, I couldn't imagine the wealth that I accumulated as a child.
Yeah.
It's
13
something
years
really
old.
did. You know, it just, and you know, I started deer hunting, which everybody deer hunted. And I would take a week of deer hunting. I had a bow. I did a little bow hunting too when I was a teenager. But in 1986, the fur market had literally crashed. I sold every fox at $32 a piece. And they said the next year they won't be worth nothing. I just couldn't imagine. I mean, you know, since you can remember a fox is worth $50, $60 and now it's worth nothing. So I thought, well, that's it. I got to do something. And I said, I'm going to get me a boat. I'm going to start deer hunting. So in the late 80s, I started spending my time hunting. It took me 3 years to shoot my first pope and young deer with a bow. And that's been close to 40 years ago. And I've killed a pope and young deer every year since the late 80s in Ohio with a bow.
Wow.
I've done it for close to 40 years.
As long as I can remember.
So how many deer's up on the wall here?
I've killed 2 deer this year, one in Kentucky and one in Ohio. That put me at 82 pope and young deer.
Wow. Holy moly.
Yeah, I had, you know, it's just like I was telling you about learning how to put out a lot of traps and how you just get smarter and stuff. It's like the deer hunting. I got a business in Cincinnati, sits on the Indiana line. I've got friends in Kentucky. I've spent 25, 30 years in Kentucky as a commercial fisherman. Through this business, I've met a lot of people, a lot of opportunity to hunt, you know, a lot of farms, properties. And I'd say probably from 2008 to 2018, I had 10 years, I shot 40 pope and young deer. So I averaged killing 4 a year in a 10-year period. But, you know, it's just the last 2 or 3 years, it's got tough. You know, a lot of the property in Indiana, EHD's hit multiple times out there in 10 years. I didn't even buy a license out there for 2 years now because EHD's just hit it all, wiped them out. And, It's like Kentucky. This was the worst year we ever had in Kentucky. Ended up shooting a buck late, but it's just things has changed with the hunting too. It's gotten tougher, but
Well,
it's just
it kind of sounds like the trapping back then is more like the deer hunting now. Like you were talking about your fur farms, and there's people that got their deer farms, and everybody was trapping, and that was where your ground was being taken up. And now it's all deer.
Well, I just want to tell you, when I first started bow hunting, the only thing I knew is what my uncle had taught me. He had shot 4 or 5 big trophy bucks with a bow. He was like the greatest bow hunter that ever lived, and nobody had ever killed a deer around here like he had with a bow. And he was just literally, he would never go to the woods till 1st of November. And he had multiple stand sites, pitch points, bedding areas. He was hunting them, those tight spots. So when I started bow hunting, I had 25 tree stands, 500 tree steps. I'd have them all in the woods.
Wow.
So I'd have them all in these little pinch point spots, and I would just, people won't believe this, but my wife can verify. I hunted 7 days a week. That's how hard I bow hunted. And I had every day, because I worked through the summer, had all winter off. I didn't care if it poured the rain down. I don't care what. I never missed a day. I'd sit out there till 11 or 12 o'clock and be back in the tree at 2 o'clock and do it every day. I'd lose 20 to 30 pounds every year in the rut.
Wow.
That's how hard I hunted.
Wow.
But I'm going to tell you something. If you go out there and you sit in a tree playing the guessing game, see, there was no cameras.
Right.
You didn't have a clue what was around. And back in the 70s and 80s, even in the 80s, these deer, there was no big bucks around here. I mean, a 110-inch deer was a trophy. Because, gun season.
There wasn't no deer.
Well, gun season was horrible. People shot everything.
Shot everything.
Brown and it was down. They killed them.
No limits on them back then, right?
Another thing, just like I took the trapping and brought it to a new level with getting all these sets prepared and all this, deer hunting's the same way. With cell cameras, I can have 5 cameras going right now in Kentucky. I set, and I don't even go down and put corn out or anything.
Sure.
I got a good friend of mine. He takes care of everything, which is Brandon Eddington at Brewbuck, and he does a good job down there. But like I said, I've just had a lot of setups like that. I got a big farm in Butler County. I've killed multiple 170-inch deer out from. Never go to the farm till I'm ready to kill a deer. Got my spots all picked out. Got my blinds set up, and make a phone call every week, say, hey, get the corn out. So basically,
No pressure.
No pressure, no preparation. So it gives me a lot of opportunity to cover a lot of ground. So like I said, I killed 40 deer in 10 years, and I concentrated on the same game every year. Cell cameras, technology. That's like me. I haven't hunted out of a tree stand for 25 years. I developed what I call a kill box, which anymore everybody's in a blind. But the way I developed to hunt the deer, everybody around here's kind of copied my way of.
Sure. Everybody I know.
Everybody's kind of copied my way.
Yeah.
I started it 25 years ago. But
You still using the Excalibur crossbow?
I just broke down this winter and went and bought me a new Raven.
It's awesome, isn't it?
25 years at Excalibur, and I spent probably close to 20 years with the old Browning and Hoyt. But,
Yep.
but
A lot of these deer from the Excalibur.
I shot the first 20 pope and young deer that I killed without a camera or cornfowl. Literally just hunted the rut, and multiple of them deer were shot with an old little round wheel Browning bow. I shot fingers, shot 190 feet a second.
Wow.
And like I said, I couldn't even go back and just play a guessing game anymore.
Sure.
But the deer hunting is a whole like coming to the place where the trapping was in the 70s. So much pressure. All the deer sees cornfowls, cameras. They're catching on to it all.
They are. They're learning.
And they're learning from it all. And it's just everything's the technology, and I think there's just a lot of deer out there anymore avoiding everything.
Well, we had that conversation in the last one talking about cell cameras. How it seems like if you put them at waist level, it seems like the deer catch them. I have better luck putting them up in the air.
So did you have the same experience with pressure in your area when you was trapping?
Oh yeah.
If you was after a week of trapping, do you think it made it worse?
Well, that's why my dad let me take a week off. I'd take a week off and catch 40 fox, 50 fox, and you might trap going to school the rest of the season for another 20 or 30 foxes. Because
The first week was the best.
week, everybody was after everything. They used to bring season in October. And then they throwed such a fit because so much fur was on prime, and they brought it in the 1st of November. But that's like anymore. If fur was high, you couldn't trap anywhere. You know, I got people call me all year, you got to come here and catch these coyotes. Okay, I'll come catch them. Well, we don't want you here till after deer season. So after gun season, I go, and they said, well, we mean muzzleloader season. I thought, well, shoot, who's going to go out there 20 degrees and fight the winter to catch a coyote? I mean, and people are so obsessed with the deer, they don't even want you on their play.
Sure.
It's just crazy.
So when you got the market crash in the fur, and then you started deer hunting, and then how long after that before you started getting into the commercial fishing?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've always said this, and I think God played a big part of my life. I've been truly blessed in my life with the life that I've lived. But the trapping thing was just fell into me like unbelievable. I mean, 10 years as a child and all the wealth that I accumulated from trapping as a kid. And I was going to these trappers conventions every year, and I met this guy that lived in Portsmouth, and I was 20 years old. And he told me, he said, I trap in the winter and commercial fish in the summer. And I said, commercial fish, what's that? And he said, oh, we go out on the river and catch them. I said, never heard of such a thing. He was such a nice guy. He said, you come down here and I'll take you out. That was the biggest mistake he ever made.
Yep.
He took me out, showed me the ropes. He was so good to me that he built me 10 nets, and he got me a fish fire, somebody to come buy my fish. I mean, he was really good to me. Like I said, it was just a godsend all my life. And the timing of that was so perfect. Here we sat, lived here on this river all these years, and there was commercial fishing allowed here in West Virginia waters. And there was 3 people that had a license. We didn't even know about it. So this was all virgin water. So I started commercial fishing here probably 1982.
Wow.
And it was all virgin water. And I got to fish here for 6 years. And then, you know, it's just like anything else. There was too many people doing it, but I did it on a big scale. We had fish trucks coming through Reedsville 3 times a week. And
Was it channel cats or was it
everything.
everything?
Flathead and channel cat. There was no blue cats in the river.
But just catfish.
Yeah, I was fishing. By the time I was 22 years old, I had over 100 nets, and I was fishing from here to Pennsylvania.
What kind of nets?
Hoop nets.
Hoop nets. Catching them on hoop nets.
I fished every locks and dam from Belleville Dam to Pennsylvania around them all.
Wow.
And I had, and I got to do that here 6 years, and they stopped it. And on the 6 years, I'd opened up the first pay lake in 1988 in Belpre, and I was just heart sick. I thought, man, what am I going to do, you know? And I got a door opened up for me in Kentucky, and I went to Kentucky, and I got to spend 28 years. I fished every pool of water on the Ohio River, clear to the Mississippi River.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of water. I got 28 years in Kentucky, and today I own a couple of pieces of property on the Mississippi River and do all my fishing on the Mississippi River. But like I said, it's been a godsend, and I think God's played
Absolutely.
a big favor in my life with the life, you know, that I've got to live and to see it all. It's just like the fur market boom. I mean, 12 years old and this thing takes off. And then through it all, you meet somebody that brings you in, teaches you to commercial fish.
Sure. Do you think the trapping, the experience led to all the success in the deer hunting?
Well, sure.
The dedication?
Sure. I mean, you know, but you know, it's like anything in life. You have to have motivation. You have to have dreams, and you got to be full of energy to accomplish anything. You know, you can be the biggest dreamer in the world, but if you don't have ambition, you got to be driven. And, you know, it's just like with anything in life. You have to have that drive.
I remember the first day you brought those fish into the pay lake. The day you opened, we was there.
Yeah.
You brought those fish in and dumped them out, and Josh caught one right off the bat. There was guys pulling in snapping turtles and everything else that day.
How old were you?
I'd have been 13.
And did you build that lake?
You know, it's the strangest thing that you do. Like I told you, I've always felt that God had a big hand in my life. Now, you're talking early 80s. That lake had sit there for sale on the market since 1950. And that for sale sign, the realtor sign, had rotted and fell over. And the whole lake was grown up. And
There was trees all the way around it.
In 1982, I stopped there and walked around it trapping muskrats. And I didn't have a clue who owned it. But back then, permission wasn't a big deal. You know, it was a misdemeanor, $50 fine. And, I trapped for 20 years. I finally did get a ticket. And I had permission. It was a hunting club that hired me to come in and trap. And one of the members that turned me into the game warden. And I actually ended up getting a permit, a citation in 1984 for trespassing, was $50. And I caught about $3,000 worth of fur off that place.
Sure.
A small price to pay. But that property had sat there all them years. So I've been sitting there for 30 years, and I got a tax map out. I went to the neighbors. They said the state owned it. So I went to the courthouse and got the tax map out and got a name. Found out that a man in Marietta that went to his house. I said, "You want to sell that property down there?" And he said, "Yes, I'll tell you. How much you give me?" I said, "Well, how much you want for it?" He said, $10,000. I said, $10,000. I said, "I'll give you $3,000 and $3,500 next year and $3,500 a year after." He said, "That's a deal." So I went and got me a lawyer, bought it on a land contract for $10,000.
Holy cow.
And opened it up in early 80s.
Yeah.
And was in business. Sit there for 20 years, and we run that pay lake business there for 20 years.
Yep.
You know, when I lived in Washington County, I had 25 permission slips, and every one of them was wrote out to informed otherwise. I had them all in a book on 25 different pieces of property just for bow hunting. Now, that would have been late 80s, early 90s. And I said I never heard of a piece of property that somebody paid to hunt on.
Yeah.
These people all let me hunt, neighbors around there. And all the deer died up there in 2008 when they all got EHD. We sold that lake and came to Reedsville.
Right.
And I said then, when I moved here, I never paid to hunt anywhere. And, today I've got 5 or 6 leases
Sure.
just in Ohio here that we have to hunt on. And that all started here within the last 6 or 7 years. And I would thought, hey, it's coming to the place you either have a lease or you're not going to hunt.
That's it. Running out of
It's
land.
changed that much.
Sure. Running clear out of land.
Whole lot like to trap it. It's just got so crazy.
How much time do you spend commercial fishing every year?
Well, I used to fish, back in the prime of my life, we used to fish 8 or 9 months a year. I usually fish about 3 or 4 months a year. But, I'm getting old.
Long, hard days, though, aren't they?
I'm 60 years old. I've had 2 knees replaced. It's got my second knee replacement. And so I got some age on me now. But, I've got these 2 businesses now. I can slow down a little bit.
Sure.
Got all my kids raised.
Wyatt's going to do some fishing.
Yeah, Wyatt, he's the one full of the outdoorsman and full of life, to pick up and carry the torch.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest fish you caught in the river?
The biggest fish I'd caught here in the 6 years that I commercial fished was 48 pounds. My dad commercial fished in the 50s with trout lines here, and it would have been 50s, I think it was. And he caught a 12-pound shovelhead and had pictures of it and showed it to everybody.
Wow.
My dad came back from Korea, or went to Korea in the early 50s, and the pollution was so bad in the river here that the banks was lined solid dead fish on both sides. And it was that way for 10 years, and my dad said that these plants just dumped everything in the river through the 40s. This was in World War II. He said when he was a kid, they lived right up the road here, about a mile, and they walked up their front door and walked down to the dam, and they had these old roller dams. And he said the river was full of fish. He said fish would come up along that wall that was 6-7 foot long. Big black fish, and they speared some of them. But there was monster fish in the river during the 30s and 40s. The river was full of them. But during World War II, early 50s, the pollution got so bad.
Killed them.
Everything in the river was killed off. In the 50s, my dad caught a shovelhead that weighed 12 pounds. We started commercial fishing in the 80s, and I caught an 18-pounder the first week. He said, I never dreamed there was fish in that river that big. But 48 pound was the biggest we caught by the 80s. But I will tell you, the Muskingum River has produced multiple giants. And all the little rivers have produced giants for the simple reason they've been there longer. The little rivers didn't get killed out from all the toxics
All right.
and the stuff that was dumped in the river.
Makes a lot of sense. We've always caught our biggest ones in the Muskingum. What is the biggest fish you've caught in your career?
Biggest fish I've actually caught. I spent 10 years in Alabama, and we'd get out there every year, which was a paradise. This would have been back through the 90s, 105 pounds. And I caught several fish every year.
105.
I usually caught one a year down there around 100, a little over, but 105 was the biggest I caught. But I want to tell you something. The world record blue cat stood at 73 pounds for like 40 years. And they said it would never be broken. All the rivers, Mississippi, all the lakes and rivers, fish had been killed off because of pollution and the environment. And I think it was in the late 90s, they caught that fish at Santee Cooper, was 109 pound. New world record. And the one before that was 73 pound.
Wow.
And it stood for 40 years. 100-pound catfish is so common now that we see them every week. They're the biggest fish we had last year, but I didn't personally catch it, but the biggest fish that we had last year was 122 pounds.
It was a blue, of course.
Yes, but 110, 12, 13-pound fish, they're getting caught every week on the Mississippi River now. I mean,
How old do you think a 100-pound fish is?
well, they caught one at Vicksburg, Mississippi, broke the new state record down there. It was 16 years old, weighed 133 pounds.
That's awesome.
133 pound, aged at 16 years old. So I honestly think a blue cat is 60, 70 pounds, 5 or 6 years old.
That's pretty fast.
That's very fast, yeah. I had no idea how long they would live, but
So that should give them a good long life after they're 100 pounds.
You know, the life expectancy on a blue cat is less than 20 years. They die off. And all these world record fish that's been caught have been aged. And most of them's not very old. They're not. And like I said, the environment's changed. I would say in the High River here right now in front of my house, which we know they've been stocking blue cats.
Yeah.
New state record just caught down this year, 70, was it 68?
I think so.
I would say we have 70-pound blue cats swimming here locally here at the Belleville Pool. And I'd say there's multiple 60 to 70-pound flathead living here in this river now.
so is this 123-pound flathead, that's the world record?
That's the
still?
world record. I think it was caught in Oklahoma or someplace. And,
Was that a reservoir or something?
yeah, it was in a reservoir.
Yeah.
And
So-
the blue cat was a world record caught, which it was a world record caught in Illinois, but it's been broke 10 times. You know, we got biggest fish now is Kerr Lake Reservoir, 145 pound, 143 was caught there, 145. But there's been a lot of fish caught up the Missouri on the Mississippi River now in the 130s. And
You think it's a direct result of better water, less pollution?
has to be. You know, it just has to be. The environment's cleaned stuff up.
Do you think there's less fishing going on, less commercial fishing going
I'm
on?
gonna tell you something. You know, we always have this problem with the pay lakes, and your avid river fishermen hating on the pay lakes. But I never dreamed, ever could even begin to imagine the amount of fish that live in the river. I started going to Maryland 15 years ago. The Potomac River, there's only 80 miles that they're allowed to fish. They can't go above DC Bridge. They allow them to pull hull seines in the river. So they'll out pull these big seines. Before the blue cat showed up in the middle of the winter, the most that anybody had ever caught a hull seine was like 40,000 pound of fish, channel cat. The blue cat showed up down there, and the number one family down there last year caught 200,000 in one pool. Multiple 100,000 pound pools. Down in Maryland on the Potomac River, there's millions and millions of pounds of blue cat harvested every year. Bigger fish caught every year down there. Multiple 80s and 90s was taken out of there last year. The fish just keep exploding. A lot of pressure, a lot of dead market. It's hard for a biologist or anybody. You know, I fished for 28 years, a 100-mile river in Cincinnati through Kentucky. Fished it every year, 8 months out of the year. And I would catch 100,000 pound of catfish a year off that section of water. And from the time I started till the last year I fished here, when I started, a 40-pound fish was as big as you catch. The last year I hauled the biologists around for 2 years. We had 20 fish that broke 50 pound, and I was catching flathead over 72 years in a row.
Better all the
Multiple
time.
60s. And that's all the pressure we put on. You know, we're out to catch everything.
Right.
But if you tell a river fisherman in a 100-mile river you took 100,000 pounds of catfish,
You're gone.
they're all gone.
Yeah.
But then you go to Maryland, you got 80 miles of river, and they're catching 10 million pounds of blue cat alone every year, and they're still getting thicker.
Yeah.
How many fish can live in a river system that's 100 miles long and 40, 50 foot deep and a mile across? How many billions of acres of land and animals fish are living in that river?
If it's clean water, they can do it.
We built a little pond that was 35 by 35, 5 foot deep. And we was hauling fish out of Maryland. We bought it for storage, put a well on it. And we normally haul about 6,000 pounds of fish, and we'd come in and we'd put 6,000 in that little pond. And, I would think that little pond just be solid fish. We kept looking down there, and you could hardly see any fish in it. We ended up putting 15,000 pounds of fish in a 35 by 35, 5 foot deep, keeping it for a month.
Wow.
15,000. So when you go up here to Pay Lake and you got a 4-acre lake and you put 15,000 pounds in, people says, well, they're just stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
Whole lake solid fish. There's really, it's not what you think it is. If you could put 50, how many fish do you think lay up against that dam when the turbines is rolling? How many millions of fish swim up that river?
Right. A lot.
And, fishing's tough with a rod and reel out there in that big water. It always has been, but it's just amazing.
You think the zebra mussel has helped any or hurt any?
I don't know if it's hurt. It's probably definitely helped.
I know the waters growing up, it was never clear. There was never weeds growing out into the river. There was never habitat for the smaller fry. Now the waters are clear. You can see the bottom 30 feet out from the banks. And
I'll tell you something, hunting, that's just like back in the trapping days. I'd catch 40 fox every year for 10 years within a mile radius of Breedsville here. And next year there'll be just as many. That's the way nature is. It's just amazing when things are healthy. The foxes got sick in 1982, the gray fox did. They got the distemper virus. Today we have no gray fox here. I haven't seen one for a long time. Wyatt finally caught one in a trap this last week. But here around the house, it was just eat up a gray fox. But distemper virus, I talked to the biologist. They was doing a study on it. She got a hold of me. We talked. I said, I still think they got the distemper virus. She said after they tested them, they called her like 5 or 6 of them. They all end up dying of distemper virus. That's why we have no.
that was recently?
Yeah, about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But, that's just like me with trapping. I caught the first coyote in Hamilton County at Seacoast Landfill in 1985. The newspaper come out and did an article. That's how crazy it was. They never seen one. And I come back here and caught 190 fox around here in 86 and caught one coyote. Never seen a bobcat. Never known of a trapper ever to catch a bobcat in Ohio. So there was literally no coyotes here in 86. And I've trapped almost my whole life a little bit. I haven't the last year or two. I've had knee problems and stuff, but probably in the mid-90s, I would go trap for 2 weeks, catch 20, 30 fox, 15, 20 coyotes. That was in the 90s, so within 10 years, they're everywhere. And today, if a man was to trap, my gosh, how many coyotes could you catch?
You could catch a bunch.
That's like the bobcats. Who would ever think the first bobcat that was seen around here was 2005? And, we trapped here every year at Christmas time for 3 or 4 years. We caught over 20 cats right here around Reedsville.
Yeah.
We've caught 7 or 8, 9 1 year, just right here. Wyatt set a trap right over here behind the Biggle Dog and caught 2 right here at the Pay Lake.
I got them on my trail cams, on my corn piles about every other night.
And it's like I said, it's like regulations. That's like the fox and coyote. It was open. You kill all you wanted. Disease is number one factor. That's what's hurting today with trophy deer hunting. Last year was the worst year I ever had, but we had the biggest outbreak of EHD in Ohio that we ever had, 46 counties, and it's just devastated the deer numbers.
And then it takes years for them to get the age class.
Well, like I said, some of my best properties, that's like Indiana out there, 10 years it's hit 3 times, It's just, but you go other places in Indiana and it's good.
Right.
But it's like me, I got a farm in Butler I've had for 20 years. I've killed 5 or 6 170 class deer off from it. It was like hunting on the Milk River. And last year, there was 3 bucks left alive after the EHD went through there last year. And I mean, I would normally have 10 or 12 bucks on camera over 150 inches on that property, and it killed them all. They just all died.
Wow.
And then, like I said, how many years does it take for something like that to come back?
A lot.
A lot of time. Yeah.
So how many different states do you deer hunt in?
I've normally just concentrated on 4 states. You know, I got the business in Cincinnati, sitting right on the Indiana line. I spent 30, 40 years in Kentucky. Know a lot of people. Have had a lot of opportunity to hunt there, and I've hunted a lot in West Virginia. But I had model West Virginia license now for 2 or 3 years, nor an Indiana license. I've just kind of hunted in Kentucky and Ohio for the last 3 years. But I just got a bunch of property gave to me in some new area in southern West Virginia. I got a guy that's been coming here fishing, works on a strip mine down there, has been showing me these videos, 180, 90-inch deer walking through the pit every day.
Big ones.
So this is in Wyoming County. So he said he would get me permission to access the work zone next year, and I could come right in on the work site and hunt them deer. So next year I'm going back to West Virginia.
Nice.
And I got a new guy that fishes for me pretty well full time. He lives on the Kentucky side of the river, and Illinois is on the other side. And he just found a deadheader the other day. It's like 190, and he just landed me some property right there in that area for bow hunting next year. So, you know, if my health's good and everything, I might
Take some time off.
I might go back, try and kill 4 or 5 deer a year.
Nice.
You know, go back to West Virginia, go to Illinois next year. And, you know, this is another thing, technology. He said, you bring me 3 cameras, you know, I'll just take care of everything for you down there and run cameras for you, you know, get something, you come down and go hunting. So technology's made it possible. You know, you can kill
Sure.
multiple deer a year.
Cell cameras make a big difference.
Yeah.
So over all these years, all the trapping, all the deer, all the fishing, what do you like the best?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. My first love was trapping, but I can't say I've ever liked one more than the other. But everything has a season to it. That's like I told Wyatt, we're leaving in 2 weeks, headed south to go fishing. So now I like fishing the best. But
Sure.
by July, I like deer hunting the best. So,
Sure.
you know, it's just like you get tired of it, time for a change. But I'm always excited when the next season comes.
That's great.
But, you know, the last 3 or 4 years, I haven't kept up the pace of trying to shoot 4 deer a year because all my kids is big into hunting now. So, you know, it's like me the last couple of years, anything I get, some of the better deer I've had, let my kids shoot them.
Sure.
And, you know, I've had more enjoyment just taking them all hunting. And, you know, we've got 5 of us hunt. And I just get a lot, you know, I like the time in the woods and chasing the deer. You know, I play with cameras all winter long. I kept corn out all winter long. And I had 180, 90-inch deer all year on camera. And anxious to see what he's going to be next year. But, you know, just been out there playing with it all. It's just, you know, you got to have something.
That's right.
I still ain't much for watching TV and sitting on the couch.
That's good. So you killed a deer this year?
Yeah.
What was it?
I killed a deer in Kentucky. I never scored it. I would say it's about a 140-inch deer. Killed it in January. I think a week before season went out. And then I shot a 154-inch 10 point, or maybe it was 11 point. Just got it back
Nice.
here in Ohio.
And Wyatt killed one this
I
year?
got a 160. Hunter got something close to 150. And
Big deer.
yeah, well, we had a good time. But, you know, last year we literally, on all the properties we had one 10 point. And we had nothing on camera anywhere last year. It was just devastating. And, you know, this year we've all killed some pope and young deer, and we've got a lot of good deer on camera this year. We've let live. You know, we got a lot of 130-inch deer. We just got the sheds off of my biggest deer on the farm at Coolville, 143 inches. We'd watched him all year. He's a 6x6.
Nice.
Can't wait to see what he's going to be next year. We got another deer there. It's 130s. But we've left a lot of good deer, and I can see where next year we have a lot of potential to have some better quality deer. But I've seen the best of it. You know, I started bow hunting like 70s and 80s. I mean, a 100-inch deer was unheard of, and shot my first 140-inch pope and young deer in the late 80s. But, you know, there just wasn't a big deer around. You know, I can just go back 15, 20 years ago, and you never heard of a 200-inch deer killed anywhere in the state of Ohio.
No. And now there's
Now
multiple every year.
you get on Facebook every night, and you think, where's my 200-inch deer? And, you know, where's my 230?
That's right.
You after running cameras, you think, man, there's one behind every
Gotta
tree.
be.
Because, I mean, it's just all you see is these giants. You know, I got on a high monster buck thing,
Yeah.
and I was telling Brandon, he said, you won't have a place to hunt next year in Ohio because of all the big deer they've killed this year. And even though all the places we have seems to be on a downswing, there was 43 deer posted on Ohio Monster Buck's website that I thought would go close to 200 inches this year.
Wow.
But you get on there and look at that.
That's a lot.
I counted them 43 deer. And, you know,
How many did Toby say he scored this year?
He scored over 20.
Yeah, 20 something that he scored himself that were 200 this year.
yeah. And like I said, when I'm going to tell you something. When I started killing big deer with a bow, I lived right here on this river valley, these farms right down here. I never known of a deer ever killed out of here over 140 inches in 30 years of hunting. And I've shot multiple deer here, 70s and 80s, you know. I've shot the three biggest bucks I've ever killed, two of them right here close in Meigs County. You know, a 200 and a 190 and a 193 in Athens. And I mean, you know, them deer, that was unheard of. But,
What do you think has made the change?
well, there's no gun hunting pressure, and everybody's conservative, you know.
Well, I mean, I think the downside is everybody's so into it. They're gobbling up all this land, but at the same time, it's the plus side to people growing big deer. You know, people aren't shooting a smaller deer every year like normal.
Well, people grew up, you know. I mean, I remember 1985. It was the second year I got into really bow hunting, killing trophy deer every year, and they allowed everybody a doe and a buck, and all it was bucks only. And the next year they allowed 2 or 3 does, and then it was up to 5. You could kill 5 does and a buck. And by early 90s, there was this mindset around here: if it's brown, it's down.
Sure.
And you had 30 guys showing up, and every patch of woods was having deer drives. And that went all the way up to 2,000. People just killed everything. I get so aggravated and mad. I mean, they're just like, gosh, why would you do that? Why would
Ruined the woods.
Why would you
afterwards.
shoot them 6 points and then 4 points? And people, but you know, it's amazing. In the last 20 years, everybody's conservative. Nobody's browning down. Nobody's shooting 6 points and 4
Sure.
points.
Everybody's waiting on the big
And
one.
you know, that's just like a 140-inch deer. My kids don't even want to shoot a 140-inch deer. I remember back when I slaughtered over a 130 every year.
Sure.
And they looked at that and said, Dad, I want something. Well, there is nothing any bigger. You know,
right.
he's spoiled.
That's it.
Well, when they grow up with you, yeah.
Kids are spoiled. But like I said, I've seen the best of it, and I've seen the worst of it. We've definitely been on a downswing the last couple of years with deer hunting. But like I said, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed life to the fullest. And like I said, it's just, I sit back all the time and just think how everything fell in place. You know, from my grandfather, the trapping in the peak of it, and then how I got into commercial fishing right in the peak of it. And then the deer hunting, got to see
Right in the peak.
right in the peak of it, got to see it all, got to enjoy it all. And like I said, you know, everything comes and goes. Nothing stays the same in life. I don't think the trapping will ever be again. I don't see it in my lifetime or yet to come. I don't think the commercial fishing will ever be here again on the river. Got to see the best of all of it and got to live it. And it's like the deer hunting. I made my mind up last year. I'm gonna hunt every year. If I go back to shoot a 130-inch deer every year, then I'll shoot a 130, but it has to be a 120.
Sure.
You know, a lot of people get this mindset, you can't kill something you don't have. And hunting is about enjoying it, enjoying the hunting, enjoying the hunt, and the trophies in the eye of the beholder. I've got some deer here on the wall. Most of these deer's 130s, 140s. Them deer mean just as much to me as a 180 or a 200.
Sure.
I set endless hours hunting them
Those
deer.
deer.
I got a deer right there. It's 133 inches. I'll tell you a story about that deer. I shot it in the early 90s. My brother worked a job. He come home every day. He was crazy over bow hunting. He got 5 days a year to hunt the rut. The rut had come and gone. Nobody seen nothing. Early 90s. It was Thanksgiving week. I sat in a tree for 10 days and hadn't seen nothing. And I was in the same spot. I was seeing nothing. He said, how long's it been since you seen a deer? I said, I've been up every morning. I ain't seen a deer in a week. He said, you're kidding me. I said, no, I haven't seen a deer in a week. The woods is dead. And you know how dead it gets in the middle of November after the chasing and
Sure.
And I still hadn't shot a deer. And it was Thanksgiving week, right before gun season. Bad weather come in, the snow was a fly. And I went to a stand I hadn't been in 2 weeks and got in that tree, and at daylight I heard that deer coming for a mile. And it walked 20 yards of me. I had the old Browning round wheel, 90 feet a second, froze to death, drawed it back, and the peep sight was full of ice at 20 yards. And I just looked around the peep, shot him, and hit him perfect and killed him. I brought him home. He was 133 inches. Neighbors came from all over. He killed another big one.
Yeah.
He got him another big deer, you know. And I just said that deer means just as much to me.
Sure. Just as hard to kill as any.
Which deer was that one?
It's it's the third one on the bottom right here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the third one on the bottom. It's got the steel band on it.
Well, I sure miss those steel bands.
Yeah, I don't like the way they did it. I think it kept everybody honest.
Well, I think it helped. You had to take your deer.
Yeah.
Somebody had to look at it.
What was the last year they did those? 2000.
I shot that 190-inch deer 2002, and it's got a steel band on it. That one right there, the third one over, it's 190. It's 2 drop tines. I think it's a 2002 or maybe a 2000, but it's got a tag on it.
You killed it the same day your brother killed one,
Killed
didn't
them
you?
back to back, 180 to 190.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was just the beginning of cameras and corn pound.
Did you know those deer?
I didn't know his. He never had a camera or a corn pound.
Wow.
He just shot it. He was on a white oak patch first day of bow season.
First day.
Yeah, and that deer had been seen the year before in gun season, and people had told him it was the biggest deer anybody had ever seen. 2 people shot at it. My brother was one of them that shot at it, my oldest brother. And Craig went in there, and a stand had been sitting in there for 20 years and climbed up, and that thing walked right underneath him, eating acorns.
Wow.
And
I remember that day, both of you.
we shot them both back to back.
Huh. That's a big one.
So, with the pay lakes, how do you like having the pay lake in your backyard?
Oh, I like it. Give me a chance to retire now.
Yeah.
I get to see you guys more often.
That's right.
You still have the ones up in Cincinnati, or is that where they went? How often do you go up there?
Oh, I mean, when I'm traveling from Illinois into there, I'm there every week. But, you know, just like this time of year, I don't, like, good months never go up there.
Right.
Going on.
People don't like. What's your season for the pay lakes?
Well, basic season's 8 months, but I mean, you know, there's this time of year ain't nobody really coming out to go fishing. If somebody wants to come here and go fishing, we'll let them fish, but there's no traffic right now.
Yeah, just the warm months.
It's like I said, it's another thing I've been fortunate. If I'd had to work a job, this could never happen.
Sure.
You know, to have the time, you know.
This took a lot of time.
Oh, it's been an obsession. I mean, it's just like killing a deer. I mean, nobody can blame the mindset. I mean, I've literally set on a deer, one deer in particular. The first year they come out with a camera, it took pictures.
With like a roll film.
Roll film.
Yeah.
I got a picture of this deer on a scrape. I put 3 stands in the area. I hunted every day. Now, I'm not missed a strip. I hunted this deer every day. And 3 days for gun season, he walked under me broadside, and I shot him, hit him behind the back, and lost him.
Never seen him again.
He got shot in gun season. They killed him.
Man.
150-inch deer. 150-inch deer back in mid-90s was like shooting a 200.
Right.
I was sick. I think that was the last year I used the old Browning round wheel. Went and got me a Hoyt.
Yeah. A little faster bow.
You know, I come home and I had a tree stand. I'd shoot around the arrows every morning or every day at noon when I come out. I'd get lunch, go grab arrows, shoot around. I was an excellent shot with that old Browning round wheel. And that bow was so slow, that deer dropped. And I realized that. He dropped it.
So what years did you start doing the corn piles? Has it always been legal in Ohio?
Well, it's always been legal. You know, that's the strangest thing. Nobody ever told me about a corn pile.
Nobody knew.
I'd never seen it on TV, never heard of it, never went to Walmart or anything, seen deer corn. One year I was hunting, I was watching this deer all summer, and I had my mind made up to shoot him. And they come out with the flash cameras. That was like, had to have been right there in the 90s sometime. Well, I know my first corn pile was 2000, so let's go back to 2000. And I was trying to get him on camera, and I picked up some apples, took them up and dumped them. And then I started thinking about it all. And I thought, I wonder if corn would work. And I shot that deer on cornplow. It was 142 inches opening day of bow season. I thought I'd kill him.
First day.
First day, shot him. And that's what triggered the cornplow thing. But then again, the next year, you know, 1 or 2 cornplows. And then we said, you know, if you go back hunting the rut like I did in the beginning of my hunting career, the best you could hope for is 1 deer.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
we couldn't have went all over and killed multiple deer.
Sure.
You know, I actually had a run that I literally was killing every deer I went after first time in. You know, I'm shooting 4 bucks a year, all of them 160 or better. I shot 4 deer 4 years in a row over 170 inches. No, I killed 3 4 years in a row over 170 inches. That's the quality of deer I had to hunt for.
Wow.
And most of them was getting shot the first time I go in because of technology.
Yeah.
You mean, but I'll tell you something, today, what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, you know, used to be you would get a picture of the deer every night. He'd be there 3 or 4 times a night eating at the corn pal. It was always tough trying to get him to come in the daytime. Mm-hmm. Most of that's triggered. I'm a firm believer in the moon cycle.
Yeah, me too.
You have to watch that moon. You got to hunt the moon. I've seen deer that you thought would never come in the daytime, be standing there daytime, and there you look, quarter moon. There it is, standing there. And I've killed a lot of deer watching the moon, but, you know, it's just, with technology, it's changed so much.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's opened up a whole new door on deer hunting.
Yeah.
You could have never did it without all the stuff we got today. But like I said, the thing I've seen today is I get picture of deer. Might not see it again all season. Might come once a month. You think, sure. Where's he at? Somebody's killed him. You know, it ain't none of this stuff he's there every night anymore.
No routine.
Anymore, he's there once a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Everybody's got a corn pile now.
I mean, I've seen that. It's like, you know, they'd be there once a week, once a month. I mean, it's getting tough.
It's
like,
changing.
It's like the corn piles don't work no more. It's like
Yeah, they don't need the corn.
It's like that bottle of Hall Bakers you put in the hole. And, you know, I can tell you right now, I love hunting, love playing in the woods, but I can never go back to the sitting in a tree 10 hours a day to rut. I just couldn't go back to that. I don't have the drive for it.
Right. You said you haven't hunted in a tree stand for 25 years.
Oh, probably since that double drop time, about 25 years. Well,
So now you hunt out of these blinds that you build?
I build them. I've been building them for about 25 years. I call them a kill box. You know, I've got a bunch of them.
So why don't you hunt out of a tree stand? Just 'cause-
I think the worst place you can possibly be is in a tree. I think it carries your scent out. I think they win you. I think they come looking for you. Now, I'm not saying if I was hunting a rut, I guess I'd be in a tree playing the wind. In the rut, I'd be in it. But hunting a corn pal, the worst place you can be is in a tree stand. And, you know, it's just, the deer's not going to come to that corn pal unless he's got everything in his favor.
Sure.
And I started building these boxes 25 years ago. I shoot out of one window this big. And the bow sits inside at a notch where you can't mess up. And, you know, when I get in that box, it's set controlled, set tight. And always trying to play the wind right. But, you know, I've had a lot of people you got to be in the right spot. You got to be in that core area.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a deer showing up there at midnight, and you're not going to kill him with the best setup in the world. You got to know where them deer lay their head.
Yeah. Got to be close to the bedroom.
You got to be close to where they're laying their head, or you're not going to shoot them. You know, which during the ride they can just pop in there. That's another thing I've taught people. I've learned this. Got multiple deer I've shot. I could kill any big deer in the woods the last 2 weeks in November. I swear by it. Thanksgiving week's absolutely the best. Or corn pile. I've told people this for years. Keep them corn piles running. The last 2 weeks of November, the big bucks get hungry. Shot many of them late morning, afternoon. They show up in the daytime and are hungry. Once they go through that 2 weeks, you want to be on that corn pile.
Well, it seems like there's always a big one on Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving is when I've always tried the biggest ones.
That's been my favorite time. But like I said, that and I've shot deer the last 2 weeks of December on corn.
Christmas.
You know, I used to say I got the first till the 20th of October to kill a deer on a corn pile. Anymore, the last 3 or 4 years, we got all these acorn mounds.
Yeah.
It seems like time season comes into the sky open.
They won't touch the corn.
It's just like, where does, you know, and what I don't understand about all that is we've had all these late frost and cold springs
Still got acorns.
and still got acorns. I mean, here we are middle of May with 20 degrees and frost on the ground, and you think, well, everything's frost. Like this year, there was no apples.
No.
There was nothing.
Tons of acorns.
More acorns this year than there's ever been.
Yep.
Kentucky's just been unbelievable in Kentucky. I mean, it's still, I waited this year. There were several deer that we had that I would have been tickled to shot, and they all lived. Nobody killed them, and they just wouldn't come back. There's still that much acorn mass down there in Kentucky.
Yep.
You prefer the mornings or the evenings?
I prefer whatever time he's coming in.
Yeah.
Mornings don't matter, huh?
Well, I mean, anybody knows trying to get in there and
Tough.
get on a deer in the morning. I mean, it's hard to get in the woods to keep them busting stuff out. I mean, it's tough.
It's hard to get in there without them spooking.
Right.
Well, I had that big farm in Hamilton down there, and when I first got it, I found the best place in the world to hunt. And I shot a 160-inch deer off from it. And every time I'd walk back there in the morning, deer blowing, going crazy. Every evening when I'd come out after dark, deer running, blowing. Man, it just seemed like after I go back there another time to every deer in the woods knows back there.
Yep.
Well, about the next year, muzzleloader season, I parked there at the barn. And I walked back there, right there behind the barn on the fence road. There's a hedge apple thicket in there. Right up to it, I jumped this big buck, and I started thinking, I thought, man, this is the spot. And I put a blind in there, and I've shot 5 or 6 170-plus inch deer out of that box blind there. I park at the barn, walk 60 yards, crawl through a hole in the fence, blind sits on the fence, and then every morning, shot a lot of deer there in the morning. But here they come up that fence line. And I can walk 60 yards, get in my truck, go home, morning, evening. But if you went back on the farm, you're hunting the same deer, but they always know you're back there.
Yep, getting too far back in.
I had a friend of mine had the pay lake down here, Chesapeake, been years ago. His dad had hunted this deer all year long. He said, you ain't gonna believe it. My dad's been after that deer all year. He said, it's been down here at the dumpster every day at 2 or 3 o'clock walking around. I said, well, can I come down and go hunting for it? He said, absolutely, come on down. I went down and he said, you go across the creek. He said, there's a boat down there. You can go across the creek. He said, you see that ridge up there on top of the hill? He said, you go about halfway up there, the big nice ridge. I said, I'm not going up on the ridge. He said, where are you going? I said, right there at the dumpster. He looked at me. He said, you're going down there and I said, well, you said it's been here every day. So I went across the creek, and there was a little strip of woods. I could see the highway. And across that road was a ridge. I went right across, and I walked up and down, and I found a deer trail. And I walked that whole bank to actually see where I thought he was coming across the road. Put a stand up, 20 minutes before dark, I heard his hoofs hit the concrete. He walked down the shot.
Holy cow.
It was over that quick. Now, if I would have went up, crossed the road,
He would have
right
not.
up on the ridge, just like 90% of hunters do,
You'd have ruined it.
I preach to my kids all the time. You got to have the greatest spot in the world if you don't have access.
Don't have access. Yep.
If you don't have access, sometimes you hunt too deep. This is a firm believer in this. We have a nice farm up the road here. We've had it for like 10 years, shot a lot of nice deer off from it. We parked our truck in August, run a corn pile on a food plot at a mineral site, 200 or 300 yards on top of the hill. Camera had been out all through August. Into September, the neighbor said, I was jogging here the other morning at daylight, this giant 170-inch deer standing in the road right here. I said, we ain't never had anything like that on camera. If it wouldn't have been him, and I know he don't lie, he's a deer hunter. He said, I seen it. He described it. Walked right over there to the side of the road, and there's an old house sitting there. We dumped the bag of corn there, that deer was.
Right there.
Right there. Never once been up on top of the hill.
Wow.
Never seen it there. Here that deer was bedding right there. Wyatt goes in first try. Kill box set up first try. Wyatt said he's watched the deer stand up 50 yards away, stood up, looked around, walked over and shot it.
Holy cow.
If we wouldn't have had access and know where that deer was laying his head, we'd never killed him because he wasn't going on the hill.
Yeah.
A deer can get up and go this direction, and that's the only direction he goes. And you know what? He's got his little route. That's just like you. Everybody has a limitation. You might come to Reidsville from Parkersburg 3 times a year, but do you go to Portland?
Right.
Do you go to Portland? No, you don't.
No.
But you come
makes sense.
you come to Reidsville 3 times a year. It's like that deer. He didn't walk 200 yards to the clover. He didn't walk 200 yards to the mineral site or the corn pile. He had 2 months to do that. And here he was, right where we parked our car.
You told me a long time ago, 100 yards means everything when it's a corn pile.
I went in on farms and dropped 4 corn piles on 4 points and have one deer, and you never go to another one. I've preached that to people. It's amazing. It's an absolute amazing.
Like they got an invisible line they won't cross.
Well, that 190-inch deer got there on the wall first year with digital cameras. I had a video system in a box, and I had it set up in there like the year before in January, and that deer came in. He was a mid-160 class 10 point. And the next year, I had the farm. It was a 250-acre farm. I had 3 or 4 corn piles running on it, and bow season was coming in. I never had a buck on camera. And right where I was parking my truck, we went up the side of a hill on an old logging road, went up on the ridge, and run the whole farm, 250 acres, had corn piles all over it. Had one not 200 yards out the ridge. And right where the trail went up, there was a dead end point run 100 yards back towards the truck. I seen 2 or 3 little rubs on trees that big around. And I told my brother, I said, there's a buck here. I said, I don't even have a buck on camera. He said, it's just a squirrel or it's a scrub. I dumped a bag of corn, come back in 3 days. I had a 150 and a 190. They're eating corn every day. Shot it the first time in.
Oh, and they wouldn't touch the other spots.
Never had him in another spot. I was giving up, and he was the deer I got the shed off from it and had him on camera in January. Now, I don't understand it, but he just lived right there, and that's what he did. This year, really, with that farm up there, was really a white awakening to me. I would have never believed that deer was living right there. Never once walked into that clover field up on top of that. And, you know, we never knew that deer was there.
Yeah, got a little bit of intel from somebody walking down the road.
And he was laying 50 yards from the highway, and it's real thick in there. And like I said, you can just miss deer all day long, and you got to be on top of them to kill them. I mean, that deer ain't doing you any good showing up there at 2 o'clock in the morning.
So if you go in on a piece of property, let's say 250 acres, a new piece of property that you've never hunted before, you put out corn piles. How many corn piles are you going to put out?
Every ridge point. You know how I started killing deer with corn piles, tree stands, and dead end points.
Yeah.
That's the only way to hunt a deer is a dead end point. But I want to tell you something. I've proved this technique to my brother more than once, and he'll tell you the truth about this. I can go on a piece of property, and there was a big deer there. I'll show it to you before the day's over with. I'll jump it up. I'll walk till I find him and jump him up. I've killed, I had a deer down here. They clear cut this, and I hunted this deer all year long. And he always knew I was after him. But I told my brother, I said, I'll show you this deer. And we walked down there, and I said, now you watch. I said, I'm going to walk up here. There's a big log laying there on that point. He'll stand up, look at you, and take off running. We walked up there, and that deer jumped up, took off running. That year in January, I walked down there muzzleloader season. Snow was on the ground, sat on that log and looked, and there he laid dead. He died in the same spot. I jumped him up 3 or 4 times. He always laid behind that big log on that point. Wow. He was laying there dead.
So you don't think jumping them up ruins it?
The deer get jumped and pushed all the time. Yeah. They don't pay no attention to it. My brother, we was over here, which this is an area I'd hunted for years, here not far away. We went in there early. I was living in Marietta at the time. I quit hunting down here, and I just went over and looked around. I found all these big rubs. I went and showed them to him. I said, I can already tell you where the deer's laying. I said, that shelf, it goes back up that deep hollow right there. It's really thick in there, and he's laying in there. We walked up there. I didn't go 50 yards. He stood up, looked at me right where I said he'd be laying, because I already knew where he'd be laying. I told my brother, I said, you go get the tree stand. We won't move. I said, get in that tree right there. He said, I'm not going to hunt that tree. I said, I'm telling you, you got to be in that tree. Well, he spent 2 weeks hunting around the bank. And he said, you ain't going to believe this. He said, I was so mad. He said, my last day to hunting, I drove back over there before, no more drove in that thicket. And there that deer was, stood up the same spot, looked right at.
Yeah. That's his favorite getaway spot.
Well, another thing, too, when I find these spots, which Walt, you've tracked deer for me, and I showed you some spots. But, you know, that's like me. I've got 13, 14 spots around here all set up with kill boxes. But these deer have produced multiple big bucks. If there's a big buck there, I'm in the spot.
Sure.
I'm in the spot. You know, they've proved themselves.
Big bucks like what other big bucks like.
You kill one, you kill another. It's like the spot in Cincinnati. Multiple big deer have died there. But you got to have the spot.
Yeah, same spot year after year.
It's just like trapping. You know, I can go down here on this farm, set 25 traps. There'll be 3 of them catch every animal in the thing. Years of experience, you learn all that. That's just like hunting this hill country. I can take out across these farms I've hunted all my life, and if there's a big deer that I can show it to him, I took people and walked right up on them. They'll lay right there and let you jump them.
Yeah.
A lot of times I go on property, I'll spend the whole day until I find him. And I'm telling you, it works. You can walk right up on them, and they'll just lay right there and let you walk right up on them.
And then that's where you go back and hunt.
I'd hunt right on top of them.
Makes sense.
I've got several deer I've shot that I've camped out on them waiting to be in there daylight, Get up and get in there early and camp out on them. That's one of my first techniques of hunting. I shot my first 5 poking young deer down here at Forked Run Lake, a little piece of property there. My brother said, I don't think you can kill a deer anywhere else. I said, I don't know if I can or not. The first 5 poking young deer, I shot all of them in the morning, 3 out of them out of one tree. And I'd be in there 2 hours before daylight. Wait. Because I already knew that
They're going to come back in at
there was
daylight.
2 spots I found there that they bedded, and they would come off the river bottom, and I'd watch them, and I had 2 tree stands, and I'll tell you what I would do. There would never be any bucks there until late October, November. I'd sit down there every evening with a pair of binoculars and watch that field. And almost every big deer I'd kill, I'd watch him. He'd come out over here, I'd be in that stand 2 hours before daylight. If he'd be over here, I'd get in that stand. That's back before cameras and cornbow. That's back when you sit in a tree playing a guessing game.
Yeah,
Sure.
Not knowing what's there.
Not knowing what's there, but that's the first 5 poking young deer that I ever killed. I killed them in 2 trees down there, and that was a technique. But it finally dried up where there was nothing there.
What's the hardest deer you went after?
Well, I'd say that 200-inch deer was the hardest deer. I spent 13 days after that deer, and the dad decided to go somewhere else. He stood there at dark with a doe.
No way.
Boy.
And I was aggravated after 13 days sitting on that deer, and I went back the next day and killed it. And I shot it the very next
Walked
day.
right in.
That deer was just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I knew he was be back, but I just sit there waiting on him. But I ain't got the heart for that.
Did he show up after dark in them 13 days?
Oh yeah, he was bouncing in there. He was showing up. Well, I just spent I don't know how many days I sat in there. That's the hardest deer I ever hunted for. But it was rewarding because I never dreamed that he was more than 180 inches. When I walked up on it, picked his head up, I thought, I'm not a shot of
Yeah.
that deer looks a lot bigger when you pull it off the wall. He carries 5.5 inch circumference through the whole rack.
Right.
Every measurement's 5.5. And you got 45, there's a mouse one too. You got 45-inch circumference. But I'll be honest with you, I hunted hard for every deer I've killed until 2001. They got pretty easy with the cell cameras and corn piles. But you take the first 20 puppy young deer I ever killed, but I put some time in it.
A lot of time in on them.
Couldn't wait to get up the next morning, just driven for it. Sit out there. I was married to my wife, and she said there were so many times I didn't know if I could stand any more of it. She said, you just seem like you was never here.
Huh.
But she never complained too much. She just let me do what I wanted to do. And, man, I spent a lot of time. About like trapping. Just obsessed with it.
Trapping and fishing.
Well, it really shows.
And
You've been really good at it.
Well, I don't know if it's good at it or just put a lot of time.
Both. Both.
I might be the worst bow hunter in the world. Just put more time. I used to think about it all the time. I thought, I've hunted more in 1 year. My brother gets to hunt in 10 years. He gets 5 days off a year to go bow hunting, and I got every day. So 1 November, I hunt more than he does, and,
Yeah,
a lot of time. A lot of time. Takes a lot of time to do it.
So what's the plan for the Pay Lake this year? You got some tournaments?
Same game as we've had. We always think that, next year's going to be the best year ever.
Mm-hmm.
I always strive for that.
Yep.
A lot of preparations went in for this year, so
Your lakes are always the best to fish.
put a lot of work in them, and, put a lot of fish in here.
I always see a lot of big fish on the bank when I come fishing.
So how many pounds of fish will you stock these lakes? Oh, you got 2 lakes here?
Yeah, we usually bring in about 5,000 a week, a month.
Yeah.
But, they get caught, hooked, and through the season, you have a die-off with them. They all ain't gonna live,
Right.
You got people up there hooking them every day, swallowing hooks. And
Oh, yeah.
you just got to keep fish coming.
Sure.
Got to keep them coming.
What's the biggest one that you've put in this lake?
109 pounds.
109.
I turned it loose up there, and Hunter sat over here every day trying to catch it. I said, I think I'll go over there tomorrow. He said, what would you do if you catch that fish? I said, I'll probably catch it, throw my pole out with the house, come back, I looked, there wasn't no line on one of them. All the line was going. Looked at the other one, it was turning. It was down to like 3 rats left on that spool. I grabbed that pole, picked it up, started reeling it. That thing come out of the lake, clear down here past the dock, and jumped clear out of the water. I thought I've caught the 109-pounder. I reeled that fish in and got it in a depth net and caught that 109-pounder.
Holy cow.
Hunter said when he seen my picture, he about flipped. He wanted to catch it. So the biggest fish that's ever been caught here, I caught it. But I even had me a coat made, and I gave myself an award, the 109-pound plus club.
109 pound plus. You'd be the only one with it.
I got my own jacket, but that's like jealousy. All I ever hear is I snagged it.
Yeah.
But there was nobody here but me. So where did they come up with this stuff?
Right.
How do they talk that kind of talk?
That's right.
It's just the way they are. They're all jealous because they ain't ever caught one that big.
I got one of them jackets.
Yeah.
Close to that. I got the 2013 World Champion jacket
Yep.
from Cincinnati.
What was was that one that you caught in the Belpre Pay Lake? It was 76 pounds?
78.
78.
That was
We
my
had
biggest.
we had one up there. It was 110 pounds.
Yep. Snuffer caught it. That's where I met Snuffer. That's where I met Hero and Little Joe.
I'd say in my hunting career that the thing that's gave me the biggest edge is the pay lake business. I mean, there's people, I get offered to go everywhere every year. I mean, people come in here and say, you can hunt my place, you can come here, you can come there.
Yeah.
It's like southern West Virginia down there. I let some guy stay here in the building. Here he is, works in a big mine down there. He's sitting there showing me videos, 180, 90-inch deer in the middle of the day.
Nice.
He says, I'll get you in. I wouldn't have that kind of opportunity, wouldn't.
Well, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and you got so many people in and out of here.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like all the years. I lived in Washington County up there. I had 25 permission slips. And that's when I first started the corn piles and the camera thing. And, I'd run cameras and corn all over that property. And all of it was free just because people knew,
Right.
And people just say, hey, you come up and hunt my place, which in days is pretty well
Yeah, that's all.
over the worst. Changed. It's amazing it changed that much. We left there in 2008, came here, at least a farm in Coolville, one in Athens the same year. And that was probably 15 or 16. I mean, that's been 9 years ago. It was 9 years back. But, the hunting thing, the free hunting's about a thing of the past.
It is. It's all commercialized.
It is, and it's like I got a piece in Ohio that I hunt, and those farmers will never lease it, but they let anybody hunt.
Yeah.
It's worse than public land.
Yeah, it's worse than public land. I mean, first day of gun season, there'll be 20 people on it.
Yeah. Well, that's like the trapping was back in the day. There was this farm down here, these produce farms. There'd be 4 or 5 of us in there trapping it.
Yeah.
But everybody was honest. They get aggravated at me. They say, how many traps you got? I said, we got 3. You got them sowed like grass. I said, well, we can't catch them. There I'd go up the hill on a motorcycle, and they'd have to walk across the field with a car.
Well, they could have done the same thing. You just
People were older than me. I was just a little kid.
Yeah. There probably wasn't like near as much jealousy over the trapping.
Oh, my gosh. I'm telling you what, that newspaper article come out that youth owns record fox bag, and I got thrown off in 3 pieces of property.
really.
Sure did. 3 pieces of property, and it was all because how much them boxes was worth and how much money it made.
Oh, that would be a battle because it's
People,
money.
it's jealousy. It's just like anything. Anytime you let people know your success or anything, it's like the deer hunting. I mean, it's just like the year me and my brother shot them deer. They both killed 100% legal, had written permission from where I shot it. That was all I heard all winter long. I killed them both, poached them both. A farmer had a picture of me dragging them through a fence.
Yeah.
I was going to prison. I was going to jail. And it's just, there's no truth to any of it.
Right.
The local game ward come up and he said, I said, I'll tell you where I killed it. He said, I already know where you killed it. I said, well, how do you know that? He said, well, I talked to the landowner and you got a key to the gate and there's no question there. And I said, well, I didn't shoot the other one. My brother shot it. But people just, that's like anymore. Anybody kills something, they said they've been happy for them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to sit back and,
Yep.
my cousin, his family, he's a lot like my family. He's driven with it. They've killed nice deer every year. A lot of the neighbors want to sit out there dogging because they said, they don't shoot nothing but a 160 plus. And they get on Facebook, so, oh, you shouldn't be shooting them immature deer. You're talking 15, 16-year-old kids out there shooting 140-inch deer every year. And I said, trophies in the eyes of the beholder.
Absolutely.
You know what? How many 160-inch deers running around?
Not very many.
How many's
If you're waiting on a 160,
Somebody
you're
that
not going to
wants-
shoot very
You
many.
know, that's just like me. I sat for years, and I mean, I went through 4 or 5 years. I wasn't shooting 160s. I was sticking arrows in 180s and 170s. I had to run a deer like that. But that's just like me. I shot a 140 in Kentucky this year. I wouldn't even thought about shooting a deer like that 3 years ago.
Right.
But
Now it's the best you got.
everybody's got something to say about something. It is the way it always is. It's like the deer hunt. It's just a vicious thing. You got a lot of good people out there, but then you got to sit back and listen to it all.
Right.
Every year my kids, I think you've seen Hunter and White. Hunter's killed 16 pope and young deer. White's killed 10. These kids were started at 6 years old. And here they are, 9 years old, shooting 140-inch deer, 8, 9 years old, and they're killing these deer with a bow. And every year I'd hear it all the time. He killed it. They tagged it in. I told my wife one
Sure.
I told my wife one year, I knew White wasn't 12 years old. He shot a 150-inch deer first day of bow season, and people said, oh, he shot it after dark. I had it on camera. The same evening he shot it, and I just pulled out a picture. I said, well, there it is. We was back at the house 30 minutes before dark with the deer. But it's just like I said, you just might as well face it. People's going to dog it.
Oh, no matter what you say, no matter what you kill, no matter what you post on social media, somebody's always got something negative to
Well,
say.
it got so bad over the kids killing deer when it first started. Feedback, I told my wife, I said, I reckon the game warden's coming. I mean, you might as well face it, he's coming. But the kids, there's never been none of that ever went on. The kids have always killed their own deer. They've all took a big part in it. And, with the kill boxes, the cell cameras, and the technology, and the corn piles, Dad goes out and does all of this work to get it on camera. It's not that hard to take an 8, 10-year-old kid out
Make the shot.
with a crossbow and make the shot. Right.
Yep. Sure.
It's not that hard to do. It ain't like back in the old days when you got to get in a tree 25 feet, sit there and freeze to death all day. I mean, with the technology and the bows and the blinds, it's not that tough for the kids.
So explain your kill box.
Well, I built them several different ways. Got boxes on trailers and boxes that I haul on trailers. But my general box is a 4x4, 6 foot long with a entry door either from the bottom or the side, depending if I put it on legs. I usually build them out of 1/2-inch plywood. Either cover them with, usually I buy a rubber roofing material, cover them with rubber. I put one little 2-inch hole on the back seat, and usually shoot out of an 8x8 square window in the front with a drawstring on the window. So, that's my kill box.
Pretty well sealed up.
I built them 6 foot, and I have spent the night in them before, laid on the floor and slept all night. I shot a 180-some inch deer. I'd already shot it, crippled it. I spent a month chasing it, trying to kill it again. I'd been in the woods 5 days after this deer. And I'd get up every morning, stay in there till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then I'd go home, he'd pop in at dark, and then the next day he wouldn't come, then the next day he'd be back, and they'd just playing that game. I told my wife, I said, I'm not coming out of this blind, I'm staying here till it's dead. I sat all day long in that blind, and went to sleep in that blind. It was a 6 foot long blind, went to sleep in that blind. I told her to call me at 7 o'clock. 5 minutes before she was to call me, I woke up. I got out in the middle of the night, took a leak, but I woke up at 7 o'clock and there was a buck standing outside, and I looked at it. I had that deer dead at 9:30 the next morning, but that's the kind of determination that I've had in hunting them deer.
Yeah, wow.
It's a lot of time in a box.
Yeah.
I've done it. Yeah, but I build them where I can, if I need to stay right there, I can. Yeah, I got a bedroll and stuff. I just, if I want to spend the night in them, it's just like a little cabin. I just roll out and stay.
Yeah.
That's one deer I remember, I actually slept in there all night. I made my mind up. I'd sit there all day, every day till I killed him.
If he comes back, you're going to be there.
I mean, ain't none of this going home stuff.
Yeah.
My brother, it was funny. He looked at me and said, "Man, what's wrong with you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You look horrible." And I said, "Well, I've been after this deer for 5 days." I said, I can't sleep.
A zombie.
Yeah. But, I can't take that anymore. Just in the last 3 or 4 years, I'll go to Kentucky and hunt a day. And I can't hunt if I go down and really put in a hard hunt, set out there, I can't go back and do it again. It just ain't got it.
Really?
Yeah. And just tell you're slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
You can tell it. You can feel it.
Well, if you didn't slow down to almost 60, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You're high mileage, James.
Yeah, I got both of my knees totally done. I got one 3 years ago, got another knee replacement done this year, and I work out every day. I do a lot of walking. I usually keep my weight down, So I got a little gym over there. I work out every night just about.
That's good.
So I got a little bit more weight on me right now than I need to have. I struggle with that sometimes. But
It is winter.
yeah, well, I'm good at fasting. I've dropped 30 and 40 pounds at times. I get up a little too heavy and get on diets. But I like to enjoy life. One thing about it, you lose your health. It's hard to do.
Yeah, hard to get back. Yeah.
That's like trapping. I mean, with these knees, both of them was just shot.
Did you do any trapping this year?
No, I haven't trapped any for a couple of years, probably. It's been about 2 years since I've set a trap. We made a tradition when the kids was like, just little things. This is how much they love the outdoors. But every year, Christmas break, I just set 30 traps. And we got all kinds of pictures at the house running trap line. And it'd be my 2 boys and 2 or 3 of the neighbor kids. I mean, I'd have 5 or 6 people to side by side. It'd be snow on the ground. We'd be running trap line. And we did that for 10 years until they all just growed up, the kids. But that was what we do for Christmas break, is run traps.
But now they trap themselves, though, right?
Wyatt did this year a little bit. Hunter, he works. He's the insurance salesman. Anybody that works a 40-hour-a-week job doesn't have much time.
No.
Yeah.
Trapping takes a lot of time.
Everything does.
Everything does.
It's
That's
like
right.
Hunter. He's very limited on hunting. I try to get him a deer that I think we have a quick chance of killing. Well, he don't have the time every day to hunt, and we always try to find something. At least he's got a chance to get.
At least you're family oriented. You all do it together.
Yeah, that's the fun thing. Just a lot of fun.
Well, James, we really appreciate it. I know I've had 30 years of experience with you that I've really cherished, and
Yeah, you've been a good friend. I've made a lot of good friends at this business. It's been, a lot of people. You just think about the Pay Lake. I've been in the Pay Lake business for 40 years, and think about the people that I've met and the friends I've made. I mean, honestly can say I don't know of anyone that's been a customer of mine that I would say is an enemy to me.
right.
I have nothing bad to really say. Even some of them that's did some things they shouldn't have. I've been robbed.
Yeah.
I've been broke into and robbed, and even by being robbed, the boy that robbed me, I'm still good friends with.
Sure.
Him,
Sure.
People say, I can't believe you let him come back. I can't believe you let him come back. But I reckon I'm too soft sometimes.
Yeah.
I can get pretty aggravated and mad, but we've had a lot of fun. Just think of all the fun and how everybody's connected through the Pay Lake.
Sure. I've made a lot of good friends here.
Yeah,
A lot of them.
been a lot of fun.
I don't know anybody that doesn't speak highly of you.
Well, I appreciate that. I've not always been where I should have been, put it that way.
Yeah.
I've not always been the person that I should have been, but I think if you live long enough, you can make some serious changes in your life.
That's right. Well, we appreciate your time and your stories, and hopefully we can sit down and do this again someday.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of stories to tell, I bet.
Oh, yeah, I could tell you a lot of stories. Like we said, we started out once today, and we forgot to turn on the thing, so we have to do it again. And I don't know if I even went back to my grandfather.
No.
We see the gun.
But yeah,
Did
tell
I
us.
go back to that?
No, we didn't. So
Let me tell that real quick. But a lot of who I am is probably to do with the family that I came from. My grandfather, I've got several pictures of him on the wall from the 1920s. Him and his brother-in-law used to go to Pennsylvania every year, take 2 weeks and hunt and trap. A fox was worth a week's wages back in the 20s. Fur was an all-time high back then. And the only set they knew was to find ravines where trees had fell across them, had notched out a place in a tree, wire that trap to that, and then foxes would run that. That's how they catch them. he would catch about 8 fox every time he'd go to Pennsylvania. But my grandfather loved the outdoors. He was an adventurer. I've got his gun on the wall. I think it's an 1898 or an 1888 is the year of it. It's a German Mauser, I think. He carried that gun all them years hunting. He's killed 2 bear with it. I've got a clipping probably from the 50s from Parkersburg News, same man, same gun, Alvin Reed. He was a legendary trapper through the 70s. He taught everybody in this community. I've got a trophy from him from the Buckeye Trapper Association from his life dedication to trapping. And like I said, he was the grandfather to everyone in this community and everybody that knew the modern way of trapping. He was a very generous man, worked hard all of his life. But, you know, my grandfather gave me traps when I was 12 years old, got me into trapping. I remember going with him and running his trap line at 13 years old, and I was just overwhelmed and fascinated from catching foxes. So that's what really inspired me in my life, which all my uncles and my dad's family, they grew up in the Great Depression, and 12 kids, wonderful family, remarkable stories. Every one of them served in the armed forces, but one that was rejected from health issues. My uncle, my dad's oldest brother, now think about this, an average tail gunner was like 6 missions and he was killed. He flew 57 missions.
Wow.
As a tail gunner, a B-24 Marauder at 18 years old, and he survived 50-some missions over the Pulaski oil fields as a tail gunner at a B-24 Marauder.
Wow.
And my dad spent 2 terms on the front lines in Korea. He was a sniper. He took a round to the side of the head, grazed him, concussion. Wow. Multiple stories from my family, but there's a picture of my 2 uncles up there. One of them understory, the other one's 81 years old today. Those 2 deer up there is both my uncles. It's in the picture.
All that are in that picture.
Yeah, those deer are from the 50s.
Wow.
And they both, the one just died, and my first cousin gave me that deer, and the other one, he's still alive. And that's my grandfather's rifle. Well, my uncle gave me that rifle too.
Is that rifle the same one in that picture? With
same
that,
one
with
in the
that
picture.
deer?
And then
Wow,
that big trophy buck up there was the first year in Ohio gun season. And my grandfather went to northern Ohio. It was the first year that Ohio had a gun season, and he killed that deer in Ohio.
Wow.
And my grandpa was fascinated with deer hunting, but we just didn't have. We never really had deer here till the late 60s, and they was really getting thick in the 70s here.
Well, that's some really cool history.
But when I built this building, put it together, I got some old family stuff and, some family thing. Another amazing thing, we didn't have a lot of deer here, and every person in this community that was an adult would load up and go to Virginia and stay in tents and deer hunt. And there's a picture of a deer camp from Virginia.
I've seen that.
Some of the community people, but there'd be 20, 30 men in this community. And that was what they looked forward to every year to go there and deer hunt.
Going to Virginia.
And my dad shot a trophy, absolute trophy, 8-pointer. I got a picture of him on the wall in the mountains of Virginia. And back then, that was just unreal. And I shot that. I've got a lot of books. This is books from the 70s, 60s. My grandfather, there's a lot more somewhere in the collection, but a lot of books from trapping and stuff. And when he passed away, the family gave them to me. And there's more. There's some Voice of the Trapper from the 70s and stuff. But like I said, to live this life and to see, to be able to reap the best of all of it.
Yeah.
Just like the deer hunting, we'll have to admit that it's definitely on a downhill swing from what we had.
For sure.
I'd say I've lived the best of it, to be able to hunt all over and kill deer and do the things I've done, the trapping adventures and the commercial fishing. It's been stopped in multiple states now, and stuff, but it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, before we even started talking, we pulled in the driveway and we walked over to your house and I looked at water. I'm like, man, What a way to live life. Like you can just tell it's just like an aurora around this place. And then I walked in here and I was like, wow, I've never seen a trophy room like that.
Well, you've always given all the glory to God too.
Well, you know what? I was saved when I was 12 years old, and I've had some backslidings in my life. I've not always lived the life that I should have, and I've had 3 big backslidings in my life. I backslid once real bad in my 30s, but probably for the last 10 years of my life, I've been preaching the gospel.
Yep.
And I just got done preaching a revival here not too long ago, and I've preached 3 different funerals here in town here this fall. But you know something, I've always been a man of faith, but like I said, my life's not always been where it needed to be, and I've did my share of wrongs and did things I'm not proud of, and I've had my struggles. But like I said, the bad thing with life is it's pretty well over with by the time you have enough wisdom to live it.
That's right.
Enough knowledge. But you know, there's nothing like the convicting spirit of Christ to convict you of your wrongs, because you know, and I just try not to be judgmental towards anybody anymore. You know, Jesus said he came to set the captive free.
That's right.
And you know, I think a lot of us have just been held captive, and a lot of people just need to be set free, and that's what he offers, you know, to each and every one of us. But like I said, I've not always been a perfect person. I've lost my temper a few times. I probably said a few things I should have. But, you know, I deal with a lot of people.
Yep.
A lot of them.
I deal with a lot of stuff sometimes, but, you know, I've made a lot of friends here.
They've done a great job with it.
And I can honestly say I really don't have anybody that's ever fished with me in the 40 years that I dislike them. I can't think of anybody.
That's great.
You know, I like them all.
Yeah.
You don't believe how many people did me wrong, and I've been robbed by them. I've been stolen from them. And, you know, a young boy that I took in, pretty well raised him. And, you know, we had our ups and downs, and you know, most people would have gave up.
Sure.
But look what kind of person he is today. You know, every time he sees me, he says, you know, I just want to thank you. You know, he always tells me he loves me and stuff, but, you know, that's what makes it worth it all.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
You know, it's just, look at him, you know, he's
Sure.
did pretty good and stuff. But
You've been a big influence on a lot of lives, James.
well, I appreciate that.
We appreciate it.
We've had a lot of fun.
Yes, we have. And hopefully we'll have a lot more.
Well, maybe we'll get a chance to do this again.
Yep. That'd be great.
All right.
Well, thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.